The phone buzzed against the kitchen counter at 2:17 a.m., its screen lighting up the dark like a flare. I was already awake, sitting on the floor with my back against the cabinets because Sarah had locked the bedroom door again, claiming she needed space to breathe. The message preview that glowed in front of me wasn't meant for my eyes, but there it was. Can't stop thinking about last night. Same time tomorrow? Face blowing a kiss, M. My stomach folded in on itself. I knew every contact in her phone by heart, and there was no M. I told myself it could be a coworker, a joke, anything, but my thumb was already sliding the unlock pattern before the lie finished forming. Sarah's breathing was soft, and even when I eased the door open, the way it used to be when we first moved in and she'd fall asleep on my chest during thunderstorms. I stood over her, phone in my shaking hand, and watched her face for any flicker of guilt. Nothing. Just the slow rise and fall of the woman I'd kissed goodnight for 8 straight years. I backed out, closed the door without a click, and sat on the hallway carpet until dawn, rereading that single line until the words stopped making sense. Morning came in gray slices through the blinds. Sarah padded into the kitchen in my old college t-shirt, hair twisted up with a pencil, humming something I didn't recognize. She kissed my cheek like any other Tuesday, asked if I wanted coffee. I stared at the mug she slid across the island and heard myself say, "Who's M?" The humming stopped. Her eyes flicked to the phone on the counter, screen dark, but we both knew what it held. She recovered fast, laughed it off as her new yoga instructor, said the emoji was just friendly encouragement. I nodded, swallowed the acid in my throat, and went to work pretending the world still tilted on its right axis. The doubt seeded itself everywhere after that. I noticed how she angled her laptop away when I walked past, how her laugh with friends on the phone carried a brightness she hadn't aimed at me in months. I started timing her evening runs, 43 minutes door to door, never 44, never 42. I hated the man I was becoming, the one who checked mileage on her car and sniffed her scarves for cologne that wasn't mine. Every night I lay beside her rigid spine and replayed our history like a desperate prayer. The way she cried into my shirt the day we lost the first pregnancy, how she danced barefoot in the kitchen when I got the promotion, the quiet mornings when she traced the scar on my shoulder and whispered that I was her safe place. Where had that woman gone? A week of this silent hemorrhage and I couldn't breathe in my own house. I cornered her after dinner, dishes still soaking in the sink. "Sarah, talk to me. Something's wrong and we both know it." She set her wineglass down too carefully, the way people do when they're buying seconds. Then the words came out flat and rehearsed. "I'm suffocating, David. You want too much, too many touches, too many questions, too much of me. I need room to be a person, not just your wife." My knees almost gave. 8 years of learning every inch of her body, every tremor in her voice, and this was the diagnosis. I loved her too hard. She said she'd filed the papers that morning. The lawyer's card sat on the counter like a death notice. I didn't sleep in the house that night. I drove to the river where we'd scattered her father's ashes, sat on the hood of the car, and let the cold bite through my jacket until I couldn't feel my fingers. My phone stayed dark. No texts, no missed calls, just the echo of her saying I wanted too much. I kept thinking of the first time she told me she loved me, how she'd cupped my face and said, "Don't ever stop needing me, okay?" I kept that promise like scripture. 3 days later the doorbell rang at 11:42 p.m. I opened it to find Sarah on the porch in the rain, mascara streaking, clutching a soggy manila envelope. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. "I messed up," she whispered. The papers inside were shredded, tiny confetti of legalese. She stepped over the threshold, dripping on the mat, and the story poured out between sobs. The M was Mark from accounting, new hire, charming, divorced, always joking about how stifled marriage looked from the outside. It started with venting about my clinginess, escalated to drinks after work, then hotel rooms that smelled like bleach and regret. She swore it was only physical, that she'd ended it the day she filed, that watching me pack a suitcase had snapped something awake inside her. I wanted to believe the tears were real, but I'd seen her cry on command when we fought about whose turn it was to call the plumber. I asked the question that burned hottest. "When you were with him, did you think of me at all?" She looked at the floor, rain dripping from her hair onto my socks. "I thought of how easy it was," she said. "No history, no weight. Just air." The honesty sliced deeper than any lie could have. We stood in the foyer for a long time, two people who used to finish each other's sentences now struggling for air in the same room. She reached for my hand. I let her hold it, but I felt nothing except the chill from the open door. "I'll do therapy, couples counseling, whatever you need," she said. "I don't want to lose us." The word tasted like rust. I thought of the nights I'd lain awake cataloging her freckles, the way I still set 2 coffee mugs out of habit. I thought of Mark's easy air and how I'd never be that for her again. "I'm not filing a counter-petition," I said. My voice surprised me, steady, almost gentle. "But I'm also not unfilling your papers. You wanted space, take it. Figure out who you are when nobody's asking you to stay." Her face crumpled. She begged, promised, threatened to sleep on the porch until I forgave her. I closed the door while the rain kept falling, locked it for the first time in our marriage, and leaned my forehead against the wood until the shaking stopped. The weeks that followed were a slow autopsy of a life. I boxed her sweaters, found the concert stub from our first date tucked in a cookbook, deleted the shared Spotify playlist one song at a time. Friends took sides with the subtlety of sledgehammers. My sister left lasagna on the doorstep and a note that said, "Love shouldn't feel like drowning." Sarah texted every day. Paragraphs of remorse, single emojis, voice memos thick with tears. I read them all, answered none. The silence grew its own texture, thick and protective. One night I found myself back at the river, same spot, different season. The water was higher, rushing over rocks that used to be dry. I took the ring out of my pocket, the one I'd carried since the day she left, turning it over like a coin I couldn't decide how to spend. I thought about how intimacy isn't just bodies. It's the willingness to be seen day after day, in all your unfinished edges. Sarah had flinched from the weight of that gaze. Maybe I'd held it too tightly, maybe she'd never learned how to carry it, but the fracture was ours, not just hers. I threw the ring farther than I thought possible. It caught the moonlight once, a silver wink, then vanished without a sound. The river kept moving, indifferent and ancient. I drove home with the windows down, letting the cold scour my face clean. The house was quiet, but for the first time it didn't echo with her absence. It echoed with space I could finally fill with something that wasn't waiting. Love isn't a debt you pay in touches and apologies. It's a language two people keep choosing to speak, even when the words get hard. She stopped speaking mine and I finally stopped begging her to try.